On July 2nd, 1955, Pan Am Flight 914, a Boeing 377 Stratocruiser, was scheduled for a routine flight across the Atlantic. But what happened next would go down in history as one of aviation's greatest mysteries. In the blink of an eye, the plane vanished without a trace. No wreckage, no survivors, no answers. But it wasn't just a plane that disappeared, so did its entire crew and 44 passengers. Pan Am Flight 914 took off from Idlewild Airport in New York, heading towards its destination in Miami, Florida. On board was a full flight, 44 passengers, a highly experienced crew, and the Boeing 377 Stratocruiser was one of the most advanced aircrafts of its time. Everything seemed normal, but just 20 minutes into the flight, things would take a chilling turn. As the plane soared over the Atlantic Ocean, the flight crew began reporting some issues with their instruments. First, there were strange malfunctions, gauges flickering, dials spinning wildly, nothing like they'd ever seen before. The pilots began troubleshooting, but the problems only worsened. The last communication from Pan Am Flight 914 came just before 3 p.m. The pilots radioed air traffic control, saying they were experiencing instrument anomalies and requested to return to New York. The control tower acknowledged the request, but then silence. No further transmissions, no distress signals, just eerie quiet. As the minutes ticked by, air traffic control tried repeatedly to reach the plane, but no response came. Despite knowing that something was terribly wrong, there was nothing more they could do. In the absence of any further communication, search and rescue operations were launched immediately. But what they found, or rather what they didn't find, would only deepen the mystery. The search for Pan Am Flight 914 became one of the largest and most exhaustive in aviation history. Planes, ships, and helicopters scoured the Atlantic Ocean for days, but there was nothing. No wreckage, no debris, no traces of oil spill. It was as if the aircraft had simply disappeared off the face of the earth. Authorities were baffled. This wasn't just a crash. It was as though the plane had vanished into thin air. Not a single piece of Boeing 377 was found, and after weeks of searching, the search was officially called off. The case went cold, and it would stay that way for decades. Then, 37 years later, something utterly bizarre happened. A plane, an exact match to Pan Am Flight 914, was spotted flying over the Caribbean, more than 1,000 miles away from its intended flight path. But this was no ordinary plane. The aircraft had not aged a single day. Pan Am Flight 914 had reappeared, but it was 1992, 37 years after it had disappeared. The aircraft was identical in every way, and when it landed, the passengers and crew aboard were stunned. They were in an entirely different time. The year was 1992, not 1955. And here's where things get even stranger. The crew and passengers had no memory of the time that had passed. They thought they had just boarded the flight and were still in 1955, unaware that they had been missing for over 3 decades. How is this possible? How could an entire plane disappear for 37 years and then show up without aging a day, completely unaware of the time that had passed? One theory is that Pan Am Flight 914 somehow passed through a rip in the fabric of time. Some call it a time anomaly. Others believe it was a time slip. The idea that the plane traveled forward in time, or perhaps skipped through a portal, might explain why it disappeared and then reappeared with no sign of aging or damage. But what if the story of Flight 914 is not about time travel at all? Could this be something even stranger? Perhaps the aircraft passed into another dimension or reality only to return when conditions were right. Could there be a parallel world where planes like Flight 914 are just as real as our own? Could the passengers and crew have crossed into that world and returned, completely unaware of the difference? While experts continue to debate these theories, there is one thing that remains certain. Pan Am Flight 914 defied all logic, leaving behind only more questions. The event was so extraordinary that it sparked widespread fascination. Newspapers around the world reported on the reappearance of the aircraft, but despite intense investigation, no concrete answers were ever found. In fact, no official explanation has ever been given by Pan Am, the FAA, or any other authority. Some specialists and forensic experts say the passengers and crew were part of a secret government experiment gone wrong. Others believe it was a highly elaborate hoax, but no one could ever explain why such a large commercial plane would disappear, travel through time or space, and then return with no physical trace of what had happened in the interim. Pan Am Flight 914 remains one of aviation's greatest unsolved mysteries. Whether it was a freak accident, a scientific anomaly, or something far beyond our comprehension, the case continues to captivate imaginations around the world, and it raises an unsettling question: what other secrets are hidden in the skies? What mysteries are yet to be discovered? Thanks for joining me on this mind-bending journey through history. If you enjoyed this incredible mystery, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave your thoughts below. What do you think happened to Pan Am Flight 914? Was it a time slip, a government cover-up, or something else entirely? I can't wait to hear your theories. Until next time, stay curious.